Hey YouTube, welcome back to the channel. My name is Dan, and today I want to talk about intuition. Okay? Intuition, what is that? Right? That is your gut feeling on something that you're going to decide to do in your life, right? And let's talk about that. It's not talked about enough, to be honest. Decisions. Decisions that you make in your life, probably starting from when you're a child, have a tremendous impact on the future of your life and your wealth, to be honest. And where does this intuition come from, right? It's probably something that people teach you, right? People teach you to make certain decisions. They give you advice, right? They give you wisdom, right? And that intuition is something that Mother Nature just instills in us. It's this gut feeling that you get when, like I said, you're making a decision in your life, right? And it's not like every day we make these decisions on a daily basis. You may not have to be concerned with minor decisions like, oh, what am I going to cook for dinner, right? Is that something that you have to have a gut feeling on, right? Maybe your gut's telling you what to eat, right? But I mean, to be honest, it's not something that you get nervous about and whatnot, right? So let's talk about, that gut feeling and whether you feel good or bad about it, right? It could be during times where, maybe it's the people you're hanging out with. Do you have a good gut feeling about those people? It could be a big decision like getting married, right? It could be a decision about getting divorced, right? It also could be about a big ticket purchase, maybe a home, maybe a car, a boat, a second home, who knows, right? It could also be, an investment you're deciding to make, right? Do you have a good gut feeling about this investment you're making? Have you done the due diligence to, make that gut feeling feel different, right? And that's one thing too you got to be careful about. Your intuition, you can talk yourself out of intuition, right? You can talk yourself out of a gut feeling, whether good or bad, right? So what else? It could be a business as well, right? It could be a business you're planning on investing in or starting, right? People every day, they start new businesses. It could also be even closing down a business, right? You may have, started a business and it's doing okay for a while, and then all of a sudden it starts floundering and you get this gut feeling like, hey, maybe it's time to shut this down, right? Shutting down a business is just as important as starting a business, okay? Same thing with buying a stock and selling a stock, right? You may not have a good feeling about a company after you've held it for 10 years. You never know, right? So I'm going to do an entire series on intuition. It's an important thing to talk about. We don't talk about it enough in our society. We talk about, how to save our money, have these strategies, but we don't talk about the decisions we make and how they impact us, right? When you live as an adult for 20 plus years, these decisions have a bigger impact than you can imagine. So I'm going to talk about some of my stories and how they impacted me, right? So in one of my previous videos, I talked about an engagement ring that I bought when I decided to ask my wife to marry me. And that engagement ring, I ended up going back to the jeweler and returning it and downsizing because of the cost. And there was a couple other reasons too. I'm not going to get into that. So that was one story I previously told. And here's another story. So we had owned our house. It was a ranch for about 12 years. It was a great starter home. We loved it. We had our first child. She was about 2 years old. And, we kind of started thinking, man, it's probably time to upgrade it. The house was feeling small. Obviously, we had tons of toys from our first newborn, right? You get all the baby toys and the toddler toys. And so we had started looking, right? And we really wanted a ranch, but we couldn't find anything on the market that was much larger than what we had. Ranches just, they don't build them anymore. It's all 2 stories, right? It's all 2 stories. So we had found a 2-story that it was in our price range and it was in a good location, pretty decent, right? And we looked at it and it was okay, right? It wasn't the house of our dreams, but it would probably satisfy a lot of the needs for expanding our family, right? But to be honest, as we walked through it, my wife and I, we just didn't have a good gut feeling about it, to be honest. However, we're sitting there, we're talking in the kitchen, right? We're looking at this new house and we're talking ourselves out of our gut feeling, right? And then the realtor's there, like kind of in the other room. So we know the pressure's there to maybe sign on a contract, right? Because we were kind of interested in this house. And so, and you know, the market's always hot. It's always hard to get a house and all that these days. And even back then, a couple years back, you know, you feel that pressure to buy a house, right? I don't know, maybe it's a societal norm, whatever. So we talk ourselves out of our gut feeling. And I ended up busting out the checkbook. I'm signing a purchase agreement with the realtor. It was late. Write over the check to her. We sign over the purchase agreement, give it to her. And we get in the car and we're not even like that excited about it. You know, in my opinion, both of our intuitions, my wife and I, it was like, was this the right call? Was this the right call? So we drive home, we get home that evening, and my wife goes to my daughter's room and she starts bawling, right? Everything our gut was telling us was this was wrong. It was the wrong decision, right? And I knew right away that, no, I gotta call my realtor back and say, rip up the contract, rip up the check, do not send that thing, okay? Fortunately, obviously back then, you know, most of the time people would transfer stuff by hand on the next business day. And fortunately, none of that happened, right? Nothing was electronic. It was paper. Ripped it up, right? I'll tell you what, it might be a good idea that when you go to sign a big contract on a house, do it with paper and do it with a check, with an earnest deposit, right? Because maybe in those split 2-3 hours afterwards, you change your mind, you say, rip that up, right? Obviously, you know, I felt bad for the realtor, you know, she probably was like, oh man, there goes that commission, right? But it just wasn't right. The timing wasn't right. I don't even think the finances were right at the time, to be honest. Like, I thought I had the right amount of cash to make that move, but honestly, hindsight 2020, I didn't even have enough. You know, I did years later. We ended up upgrading our house years later. We got the house of our dreams. We are way happier. I mean, look where I'm at. I love where I live. There's woods everywhere. It's great. So sometimes you really need to listen to your gut. If your gut's telling you, don't do it, just forget about it, right? If your gut's telling you you should do it, hey, that's a sign. Go for it, right? If you have that conviction and that gut feeling and that intuition that it's the right move for you, do it, right? So it goes both ways, right? Either you do something or you don't do something. It's a decision, big decisions we make over the course of a lifetime, right? Like I said, they're not every day. They're just sometimes in your life you're going to make those calls, right? So I think these are things that we should talk about and focus on. So anyways, just another kind of Michigan day, a little bit gloomy, but I figured I had to get out and talk about this. It was something I was thinking about. And if you guys want, take a look at my previous video about the engagement ring that I decided not to buy. It's a pretty good one, pretty good story. So, and we're going to talk about this more, your intuition and your gut feeling. So everyone, thanks for coming and watching the video and have a great day. Thanks. Bye.